Hello, everyone, and welcome. You are watching Well-Rounded Individual. I'm your host, Adam Schindler. I have another great guest for you today. He is an absolute ninja. He's a nearly 20-year black belt in Jiu Jitsu. He's a multiple-time Grappler's Quest champion. He's an ADCC veteran and an ADCC U.S. Trials champion. He is a businessman, owner of what used to be Cobra Kai Jiu Jitsu and now Simgo Academy. The man, Simgo, welcome to the studio, brother.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So happy that you can make the time to be here. I know you've got a ton of great stories through just your life experience through the jiu-jitsu world and, being from Vegas and in this community. And I'm excited to hear it.
Yeah, get to it.
Okay, excellent. So first thing that I always like to ask every single guest is that, with the name of the show being Well-Rounded Individual, what does that mean to you? What would you attribute some characteristics to what you would say is someone who is well-rounded?
Someone is well-rounded. I would just say someone who, I think it just depends on maybe your own personal definition of it. But for me, it's someone who dedicates maybe time to their family, their craft, their business, or their work, and, try to do well on all facets of it.
That's a great definition.
Yeah.
And I love that you incorporate it's almost like full circle, right?
Yeah.
So not just one area, someone that encompasses all areas of life.
Yeah.
Which, you couldn't get a better definition of well-rounded than that. So let's kind of go back to the beginning, man.
Yeah.
You have dedicated your life to jiu-jitsu, and you're one of the best grapplers in the world, and you've proven that time and time again, but also you're just a great businessman in person as well. So tell us how that started.
So, it's funny. I actually watched the early UFCs. I think I was about 7 or 8 maybe. And I just had no interest in the jiu-jitsu portion of it, the grappling part. I would just fast forward through it.
Yeah.
I think I was just watching just because they said somebody might die.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I was unsupervised as a 7 or 8-year-old just watching it. And then I think it was in high school, maybe the summer before my freshman year, we knew this kid that he went on a date with this girl. And at that time, too, it's you go on a date at that age. I think he took her to the Orleans or something. And I just heard this story, the story recently. I don't know how accurate this is. And took her to, you know what Dance Dance Revolution is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Took her there to the Orleans. And then it turns out the girl had a boyfriend. And he found out. And he showed up, and he did jiu-jitsu, probably just a little bit, and then threw him over the Dance Dance Revolution machine with an Uchimata or something, and then broke his arm with a straight arm bar. Broke his arm, and this kid, I remember seeing the kid with a full-on brace,
mm-hmm.
and then just asking about what happened. They're like, "Yeah, he does this jiu-jitsu thing," and then I was like, "I gotta learn. What if I'm dancing and somebody attacks me?" Or so. I was just interested, and so I asked my mom and dad to look for a gym here in town in Vegas. At the time, there was only 2 or 3, and maybe a week or 2 later, she signed us up at JSect, and this was I think freshman year of high school. It was me and my brother. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So basically, you saw that, you're like, all right, I want to go on dates, and if this ever happens to me, I got to be the one doing the arm breaking.
Yeah, I think I was just terrified. I think that somebody could do that to me.
Yeah,
and I was like, that's the thing, because I think seeing the kid with the brace kind of freaked me out. Just hearing about him getting beat up like that. So I'm like, he's just some Gracie jiu-jitsu kind of. And then right away, I was just looking online.
Yeah,
we were actually looking for. There was a Gracie school at the time, and we just could not find it. So we ended up just going to JSect.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And you were 15 at the time?
Yeah, 15, yeah.
And did you wrestle in high school as well?
So I wrestled after jiu-jitsu because everyone was telling me to wrestle.
Okay.
So I wrestled after high school or after jiu-jitsu, and then I did 2 seasons of it. Okay. And it was just so grueling that I couldn't do both.
Right.
It was just too much between that and schoolwork. So I was like, I'm not even I'm supposed to be doing jujitsu or wrestling to help my jujitsu. I'm not even doing jujitsu anymore just because I'm just so wiped.
All the wrestling all the time.
But it helped me out a lot.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the hardest things I've ever done still to this day.
Right.
Was wrestle.
Yeah, and I grew up a wrestler as well,
Yeah.
so I can completely relate to you on that. And I had to unlearn quite a bit of wrestling when it came to transitioning to jiu-jitsu, actually, just because you know how wrestlers are like so almost over aggressive. I was getting caught in arm bars and triangles and chokes all the time
because you wrestled in college too, right?
I actually didn't.
Okay.
There's a long story about what happened there. I could have, should have, would have wrestled in college, but I got in some trouble and I wasn't able to. But I grew up wrestling, and like I was like on like traveling teams, and I won nationals and stuff like that. So I was a high level wrestler.
Yeah.
But it ended at the end of high school when my behavior didn't really coincide with. But also at the same time too, man, I wasn't trying to cut weight in college anymore.
Yeah.
That was horrible. So I completely relate to.
And what did you wrestle at in high school?
My senior year I was 152. Or what?
Yeah, 152.
152 is what I wrestled my senior year, and junior year I once stayed at 152 in my senior year, and I once stayed at 145 as a junior.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I was a freshman at 112, but I was cutting so much weight that like it was miserable. I got third as a freshman. Then I quit my sophomore year because I was like, I hate wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I came back, and I had a love-hate relationship with the wrestling mat and just that whole sport in general throughout my whole entire childhood. You know, my dad was my coach for the most of the time too. So that didn't help.
Yeah.
I mean, it helped in some areas, but you know, was detrimental in other areas as well.
The takedowns part of it is fun, right? By itself, it's fun. But when you throw in like the weight cutting and traveling and competing, then it's not as fun after.
Yeah, and that's the thing I was telling people too. And people, especially like, there's a lot of weight cutting in, you know, the MMA and jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. But it's way different because when I was fighting MMA, I was cutting, you know, a solid 15 or 20 pounds once every couple months.
Yeah.
But in wrestling, you're making weight multiple times a weekend.
Yeah.
So basically you starve yourself, which was not good.
Yeah, I don't miss it.
Yeah, no, not at all. So when you get and sign up, right, and you're like into jiu-jitsu, you obviously take to it pretty quickly. You know, what are some things that, you know, that you saw in it that you're just like, oh, I'm good at this? And how did that evolve?
You know, I didn't really know how good I was at it at first. I think I just really loved it. Like the first time I rolled, like the first in class, like I think is me and my brother were trained with each other a lot just because we were, you know, probably the two smallest guys there. And then after that, we weren't allowed to train with each other just because it would get like a little heated. Yeah, you know. And I never get mad. But for some reason, when me and him would roll, it would there were times where it would get a little intense. So they said that we couldn't train with each other anymore. But I just had a lot of fun. Like, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. I would just try to watch as much as I can. This is before YouTube. So I would just have try to get VHS tapes from somebody or like go to Barnes and Nobles and get a magazine and then like go through it. So I think I just got better just because of how much I put into it and how much I liked it. Yeah. Yeah. I trained a lot back in the day.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I think that correlates with life as well, right?
Yeah.
Like anything that you love, but that you put the time in on, you're going to get better faster. It's like just the law of, you know, exponential growth. The more you do it, the better you get.
Yeah. And that was actually one of the things that helped me do better in school. Because I wasn't doing bad in school, but I think after jiu-jitsu, I became a straight A student. Just because I saw the direct correlation of my effort versus where I was, like what my effort was giving me, you know, getting better. I'm like, oh, if I just applied this to something else, I could be good at this too.
Yeah. And the discipline that it instills as well. Like you have to be there every day. It's not easy. You know, that's one thing too, is like, some people don't want to do jiu-jitsu because it's hard and it's hard to move on the ground. I always think that like it's easier for a ground guy to learn how to do stand up than it is for a
okay.
stand up guy to learn how to do the ground, because it's almost like learning a new language.
Yeah. And I think I noticed this too with, having people come in and me teaching them is like as an adult, when do you like lay around on the ground, like kicking your feet up? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like for kids, it's easy
Yeah.
to teach them because they like to roughhouse, they wrestle. But then after a while, like some of these guys, when they get older, they're not like doing a forward roll and backward roll in their free time.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I think a lot that's really like it's taken some time because jiu-jitsu is so much more popular now.
Yeah.
But back in the day when you started, it was very like underground.
Oh yeah. People
So-
had no idea what I was doing. I would tell them, they'd be like, "What is that?"
Yeah.
They're like, karate or
Yeah.
now you tell somebody, someone could know about the sport and not train. Like they could know who, let's say, Gordon Ryan is
Mhm.
or at ADCC is, or they could watch a UFC fight and understand what's going on the ground without even having trained once,
Right.
right? But before, no, they were just, I think they were just confused.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just it's really like I like to explain it to people who don't understand. I'm like it's almost like learning a language, but like
Yeah.
a physical language.
Yeah, it's I think if you had some sort of background with wrestling or judo, it would be a lot easier to.
Oh
learn.
yeah, for sure. For sure. So let's talk about how it transitioned into so you started at JSEX first
Yeah,
and then
Cobra Kai. Yeah.
Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
Mark
Yeah.
Lehman started Cobra Kai in 2003, correct?
Yeah, 2003 in his backyard.
Oh wow.
Yeah, in the middle of June. Yeah, in the middle of June. So he left. Mark was our teacher. He was our coach.
hmm
And then when he had left, we were just like, well, what are you going to do now? Where are you going to go? And I'm not sure what happened at the time, like where he was planning on going. But I think everyone was just bugging him to open up a spot or something like that. And we just had like a collection of mats from different people, and he just laid them out in his backyard. And we would train there.
Wow.
That lasted for, I want to say like a month or two. It was just too hot. And then we got this office space by UNLV on Trop, east of Maryland. And you could fit maybe three groups in the room. And we would just have to rotate in. Like if you've seen videos of the old Unity gym in New York, it's kind of like similar feel to it.
So that is, to me, that is so cool. Like some people probably hear that and they're like, "Oh man, like that must have been hard." But thinking back on it, like that type of nostalgia, you're like, "Whoa!" Like
It was fun. Yeah.
you gotta love it to roll in
Yeah.
June
Yeah.
in the backyard and then in a space like that.
Yeah, like now, I probably wouldn't do that now.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
Also, after like having such nice facilities and
Yeah.
like being used to like what you have now, which is amazing, it'd be
Yeah.
hard to backtrack to that.
Yeah, we were there for a bit too. I think almost till the end of the year, and then we moved into the location behind Cheetahs,
Mm-hmm.
and that was in the winter time. That was in like, I want to say December, January, and we had no heat, and then we were training in the cold. Yeah.
So both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
And like at the time too, I didn't even have a car, so Mark would have to pick me up from my house, and he lived all the way on like, I don't know if you're familiar with like the sides. You probably are.
Mhm,
Like
yeah.
he lived all the way on like Tenaya in Washington, and then I
Yeah.
lived on Desert Inn in Buffalo, and he'd pick me up every day for training.
That's dedication right
Yeah.
there. Well, you guys must have formed like a really great bond then, as far as that instructor student and just friendship.
Yeah, he was very instrumental like during my formative years, like almost like a big brother, like a father figure.
Right.
Like he would pick me up every day from training, and then after training we would go out to eat somewhere, or if I would compete, because I couldn't afford to compete, so he would pay for my tournaments and just coach me, man. Just like even just with regular things too, not just jiu-jitsu.
Like life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so important to have, friendship like that and someone who can like show you a way in a right way, I believe. That's super awesome. I never knew that, and I love to hear that.
Yeah, and it wasn't just me too. Like he helped a lot of people. You know, it's funny because like I think people only see him from sort of from one lens, and that's him at a competition,
right?
You know, where he's a very competitive guy.
Right,
so
he's an intense guy.
Yeah, and he wants to win. So he's gonna do what he can to win, or he's gonna say what he can to win. So I think he's a bit misunderstood in that sense.
Right.
Yeah.
I think a lot of really special people can be misunderstood as well, you know, as far as like just, you know, the passion that it takes to have competitors and create teams and create just like a product that he created, but also then still instill discipline and value in those same kids that you're coaching.
Man, you know, I've seen him pass out before from coaching for so long, just forgetting to eat or drink, and then just like in the heat, you know, or like getting dehydrated and faint. You know, that's how into it he was.
That's a true love for sure.
Yeah.
So this was around 2003, and then how it evolved, because you competed in ADCC in 07, right?
Yes, I did the trials in 06.
Oh, so you won the U.S. trials in 06.
Yeah, and I was still in college at the time too. Mm-hmm. I wasn't even supposed to be in that thing, because back in the day, like you know how now anyone could just sign up. You could have like I don't know, like 80 people in that bracket. They would invite you still in the trials, so it's a full 16-man bracket. And I think I was like the last person to get in. I'm sure somebody got hurt or something like that. And then they threw me in there. And this was before Reddit. They had these jiu-jitsu message boards, like some popular message boards.
Right, yeah.
And then they had like a lineup of the people that was signed up for the trials or the brackets or whatever. And they had a poll of who was going to win. I remember looking at it because I was always on that thing. And then I had like 2 votes. And I think one of them was my little sister, and one of them was my friend. You know, so that's how much of an underdog I was. For that tournament.
That's amazing that you came out of nowhere and won what was the most prestigious tournament in the country.
Yeah, I think, you know, honestly, I went to partly because it was a free trip to New York, and my older sister, was living there at the time, so I just kind of wanted to like, oh sure, I'll go. And I had confidence that I could do well, and like I believed in myself, but I didn't think that it was like I was just gonna win the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like I think me and this guy Ricky Lindell were like the youngest competitors. For sure, I was like the lightest one because I weighed in with my jeans on and like my shoes on. I think it was like 66 kilos.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was like a lot lighter.
Yeah.
So I was just like, part of the reason I think I did so well was because I just had no pressure. I didn't put any pressure on myself. I was just free. I was just like, oh, well, I'll just go out there. We'll just see what happens.
Yeah.
You know? And then I just like kind of like blacked out and did well.
That's amazing. And even like when I'm hearing like you talk about like these things that could potentially be ways for you to not win, right? Like being lighter, you know, and, you know, not knowing about it until last minute, things of that nature. Like you said, can turn out to be an advantage and not necessarily a disadvantage because you're eating what you wanted.
Oh,
you're at your full strength.
Yeah.
You didn't have to make weight. And then the no pressure thing goes a long way. I
didn't even have a coach. There was nobody coaching me.
Oh, you just went?
Yeah, I just went. It was my sister drove me, and then she had a car, I think. I don't know if she had a car or rented a car, but she drove me, and then she was just watching. And then it's like some random person would coach me. I could hear somebody, but for the most part, I didn't have a coach. So I was just there hanging out on my own.
Oh, man, that's amazing. And at this time, were you black belt yet?
No, I was a brown belt.
Dang. Yeah. So brown belt, flies in from Vegas, unknown, win the whole thing. How did that change things from once that happened?
I think that honestly that changed my life because after that, then I got opportunities to teach seminars, and it just got my name out there. And it wasn't never my intention for that. Like I never wanted to open a school. I never planned on that. Even just making it to ADCC, I was just like, oh, I'll just try it and we'll see what happens. And yeah, now like it opened up a lot of doors for me, and being able to get into ADCC as well.
So when you travel, did you travel to Abu Dhabi for that?
No, so that was the year they had it in New York.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just went back there again.
Okay.
Basically, yeah. The trials were in Jersey actually.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was in like Patterson, New Jersey, and then actual ADCC was in New York.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what was the difference, do you think? How did ADCC go for you?
Not well. I had Leo Vieira the first round.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Leo Vieira at the time was, I think he was trying to like three-peat. Like he had won the previous two.
Right.
And no one was scoring a point against this guy. And that was actually somebody I watched when I was coming up as like as a kid. Like I had his magazines, and then I remember the brackets coming out, and then I just see like, oh, Simgo, United States of America, Leo Vieira, Brazil, and I was like, you gotta be kidding.
First round.
Yeah, first round. I thought I was gonna get like, give me some Asian guy or something, or some Australian, let me win one. Because I had family coming in to watch. I had family all the way from Canada coming. My aunt came down to watch, and I almost wanted to like tell her, like, I think I did tell her, I'm like, listen, like, I don't know if you want to watch this. I might get hurt. I might, I don't know if you want to watch me potentially get beat up, you know?
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is I never saw Leo Vieira, like, in the shuttle, in the lobby, in the hotel room, rules meeting, weigh-ins. I didn't see him once. I don't know if because him being who he is, he had special treatment, or I don't know. I just didn't see him. I only saw him across the mat from me.
Yeah, he just showed
after
up.
Bruce Buffer announced this.
Yeah.
And then I remember looking at him, and then I was like, I think I kind of like waved at him, like, oh, hey, like, like in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm a fan.
Yeah.
You know, like this and that. And I'm like looking at him, and I'm like, oh, he wants to kill me. He's like, he's like locked in. He's gonna kill me right now. Yeah. So the match starts, and then I'm like, I think we were like 2 minutes in, and then he hadn't really shot in. Like, oh, let me pull. So I pulled twice, and Leo's like the best guard passer. And then he had 2 attempts at passing, and I re-looped both times, and I was like, oh, I'm doing pretty good. Maybe this guy's not this good. And then I go for like a flying triangle. You could see it. It's on YouTube. I go for like a flying triangle, and then he gets on top, and then that's when he just turned it on.
Yeah.
And that's probably the first time I've felt someone or thought like, oh, there's like levels to this.
Yeah.
Like in the middle of the match, I'm like, damn, this guy's really good.
Yeah.
But I knew everything that he was trying to do just watching him for like pretty much like the past 7 years, 6 years. Like I had like a highlight of all of his matches. So when he would do a front roll, I knew what he was trying to do, and I knew he was trying to set up a head and arm.
Right.
I ended up losing that match, the first round. And that was it for me.
But, hey, I mean, but here's the thing: is that's a win overall.
Yeah.
Right. Just making it there as the underdog, going in against the multiple-time returning champion.
Yeah.
And doing your best.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it's all about. And I'm sure, especially in that time as well, the jiu-jitsu community in Las Vegas isn't big.
Yeah.
So that's pretty legendary.
Yeah. I mean, I was pretty happy I didn't get submitted. That would have sucked.
Yeah, no, absolutely, right? So, like, to go in there against the guy who... Did he win it that year?
No, so he lost that year. He lost in the finals to Hani Yaya.
Oh, yeah. He's still competing today, too.
Yeah. So that was the end, sort of the end. Well, I think Leo moved, because he cut a lot of weight to make that weight class. So he moved up the following year. And I think the following year he took second. He lost to Marcelo Garcia in the final at a weight class above.
So he was in the finals both. Yeah.
That's how good he was.
Yeah. And I mean, again, that's a win. And then you come back to Vegas, and that's, in my opinion, like a legendary feat, something that you just did that no one else here was able to do. Were you able to kind of like utilize that? I know that you weren't like looking for like seminars and stuff like that, but like within the gym and within like how you just thought about like the future of jiu-jitsu, did that change how you thought about it?
No, not really, because I never planned on opening a gym. Like the tournament was on Saturday, and I got back on Monday, back to class at UNLV, and just like nothing ever happened. But what changed for me was because of that, I was able to teach seminars,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was able to pay for like my book because I had a scholarship in college. So I was able to, but they didn't pay for my book, so I was able to pay for like all the other stuff I needed to
Right.
have to pay for teaching seminars. So I don't really feel like I noticed an impact as far as business wise because I was working at a restaurant
Mhm.
and then going to school.
Right. That's cool. Well, during that time as well, I mean, Cobra Kai is growing and it's like
Yeah.
old school, and there's some, you know, really like high level names in that gym as well. What are some of your best memories from those times on the mat? Some funny stories or anything you want to talk about from there?
We could talk about that for days, man. I don't know. Some that we have to talk about off air, I think.
Right.
But man, we had, Mayhem Miller was with us, Roy Nelson, Phil Baroni, War Machine. It was like the Wild West.
Yeah, that
Glover
is the
was with
Wild West,
us.
yeah.
Kendall Grove. Mark Holman was with us too.
Wow,
Mark
I didn't know all those. Yeah.
Mark Holman is like I had to give that ride a guy ride a couple times in my little hatchback, you
Yeah.
know. And so it was just like a really crazy time for I think everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like looking back now, especially like sometimes I'll see like a picture, somebody will post a picture. I'm like, oh, I forgot about that guy.
Yeah.
Like he was with us for a bit too.
Yeah.
And occasionally, just because of the clash of personalities, you would see people just fighting, just straight up fighting
On the mats.
on the mats and outside on the
Outside,
street too. Yeah. So, like, I'm trying to think because I think from that time frame, I would say anywhere from 05, 06 to like 2009. So those 4 years was pretty wild.
Yeah, and what's crazy too is that like when we say those like Mark Coleman, the UFC first heavyweight champion, War Machine was like Mayhem Miller, like all these big names, they're famous people, but within the gym, they're just another person on the mat.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, and I think MMA back then wasn't as popular too.
Mm-hmm.
So I think now, if let's say you have Leon Edwards training at your gym, like he's pretty well known. Like everybody would know who he is. But before, no, I don't think people really knew who Mayhem Miller was, even though he was probably one of the more popular athletes at the time.
Right.
Same with Coleman, I think.
Yeah, you just kind of like it was so underground that you kind of like had to be a follower to be able to recognize these people.
Eddie Bravo too would occasionally drop in.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like he would be there, and we had a lot of like visitors too, coming in from everywhere. Because you got to realize back in the day there wasn't a lot of gyms. There was probably like four or five, and we were so close to the strip that everyone would just train with us.
Yeah, I remember like back seeing photos like through this is probably like 2009-ish. The alpha male guys would come in.
Yeah.
And then of course, was it Mark that formed Team Takedown?
No, it was like a group of guys, like a management team.
Okay.
Yeah. So Mark was the coach.
But he was the
became
coach, right?
Yeah. And that's how I ended up taking over the gym, is when he left to go to Texas for Team Takedown.
Okay.
Yeah.
How was that transition? What did you think when you're like, oh, like I have a gym now?
So
how did you transition from like student, love jiu-jitsu to, oh, I have a business to run now?
I had no idea what I was doing. So I was originally supposed to go with them as like an assistant coach or whatever. Like I was set on going with them, and my dad talked me out of it. Like, hey, you could get an opportunity to work for yourself if you stay here. And I'm like, well, what am I gonna do? And he just said, you ask him if you could buy the gym from him, or you could take over the gym, take over the lease, everything. And I kind of really didn't want to do it, honestly. I wanted to go because it seemed so exciting at the time.
Yeah.
They're opening up this new facility, this world-class facility, and they have like all these coaches and working with the athletes. I ended up staying, and it was rough for a few years, like just trying to figure everything out. Basically, like honestly, it probably would have been easier to just start from the beginning. like scratch on your own.
Oh, really?
Rather,
You think so?
For sure, yeah. Rather than undoing everything, but it's easier in the sense that I had a student base already, so I didn't have to go looking for people. But
Right.
there wasn't a lot though.
Right.
So it was. I was fortunate. I had people helping me. Like my brother is an accountant, so he was able to help me, and my dad was able to help me. So I was lucky in that sense. But a lot of it was trial and error and just like learning as I go.
Right. Just get thrown in the deep water and be like, all right, figure it out type thing.
Yeah, but I think I was just so happy to be doing it that I didn't really care either.
Yeah.
You know, because even to this day, it doesn't really. It feels like a job in the sense that you have to be there at a certain time and you have responsibilities. But to me, it just still doesn't really feel like a job, like an actual job. Like I used to work at a restaurant, and I would take the bus to Aloha Kitchen where I would work, and I'd be sitting on that bus hoping that someone would hijack the bus, like in the movie Speed, just so I wouldn't have to go to work. Someone would blow the bus up or something like that. Like I would just be like, I can't go today, man.
Yeah.
I'm tired of this, you know, like, so I think looking back at that now, I'm like, oh, I get to pretty much like teach my friends and hang out and train.
Yeah. That's amazing. Just
Yeah.
like, but it goes back to like what they say, right? If you find something that you love to do and you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
I have a similar experience as well. I remember being one time I was like 23 years old, and I was a computer programmer. I was in it when I was in the Air Force. So it's basically like a military form of office space. And like I'm like super high, like not high strung, but like I want to be doing something all the time. So I was sitting behind a computer all day, every day. And this was, it might have been before I started training. So I started training and I took my first fight before I got out of the Air Force.
Oh, okay.
So I had to like sign one of those like risky behavior like waivers with my command before I got out. But I remember driving to work one day and being in traffic in San Antonio and just like, like screaming at the top of my lungs and just promising myself that I would never do something I didn't want to do. Like I would never just do something just for money.
Yeah.
And obviously like it's a little bit different because the military, you have a contract and stuff like that. But I've stuck true to that. So when I got out, I started fighting and I just always figured it out.
Yeah.
You know, and there have been bumps along the way, but I was talking to a friend today and, you know, because his little nephew is a football player. I think I forget where he played college. I think he's at Trinity in San Antonio right now, but wants to start a personal training business.
Okay.
And he was like, you know, what kind of, what advice would you give him?
Mm.
And I was like, well, you know, don't expect to make a lot immediately.
Yeah.
I did it for breadcrumbs for a long time.
Yeah.
But if you look at it like I get to do what I want to do every day and I'm my own master and I can build something out of this and I like what I do, then the possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
That's a surefire way to success.
Yeah.
So just like being blessed enough to do exactly what you want to do and not have to work.
Yeah. It's still like, there's still a lot of things that need to get done, like running a business. And I'm sure you know this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always easy, but it beats working at a restaurant for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely, man. And I mean, just life in general, right? So transitioning, I like to use, and I don't know if you can, I'm sure you probably can correlate this. I use Jiu Jitsu and grappling and combat in general a lot in correlation to like real life.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
When people are going through problems and things of that nature, right? There's always like something that like I can like correlate it to like, oh, like, you know, back to the beginning, right? When you first start and you're struggling and things suck, but you know, combat is a great way to get better at life.
Yeah.
I think life in general.
Yeah. There is like a big correlation, I think. For Mark, he always used to say like, you know, getting mounted or having someone on your back is like the tough times in life, and you just gotta like fight a little bit each time to sort of improve your situation little by little.
Right.
Until you could maybe get to like a neutral spot. and then from there you could maybe get your guard back or something like that. So even to this day, he'll talk about that too.
Right.
Yeah, and I see it helping a lot of people when they come in. Just I don't know if it's the community aspect of it or just I'm sure it's like a little bit of everything. Fitness, being around like-minded people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one thing I notice about your spot as well is that the community in there. Everyone in there is super close. They're all nice. Every time I've ever been in there,
Yeah.
like people are just so nice and happy, but they're like some of the toughest people around
Yeah.
too, you know? And
Yeah.
I notice that as well, that like strong, tough people are always the nicest people
Yeah.
that you should. I mean, obviously there are times whenever, you know, people don't see eye to eye in that sort of like fight type atmosphere,
Yeah.
but jiu-jitsu practitioners are just like the nicest people I've ever met.
Yeah, they're generally a lot of them are pretty calm, and I think, I was thinking about this the other day. I wonder if part of that is just because we're so tired.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to do anything. You're
Yeah.
just like you're just like very calm, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
I find that myself as well, whether it be like through training in combat or running or working out. You know, I've often thought a lot of times, like, I wonder what people who don't work out, like, what do you do? Because I know the days that I don't work out,
Oh yeah.
bro,
You're probably
They're-
angry.
yeah, there's so much going on up here that
Yeah.
you've got to get it out,
Yeah.
you know? So,
That's what I found with running too. Like it's been really helpful, just like keeping me calm. It's a little bit different than jiu-jitsu because jiu-jitsu sometimes still, if the practice is a little too intense after, I don't know if it's like a central nervous system thing. I feel like it's like I'm a little bit fried, like fighting for my life a little bit. So
Right.
like even when you get home, you're still sort of like maybe on the edge sometimes. It just depends on the day. But running is very calming,
right.
right?
Do you think it's a cerebral thing? Like, because you're constantly in a mental game of physical chess with someone,
Yeah.
and there are consequences to not being on top of it. With a run is great because, you know, as long as wild animals don't attack
Yeah.
you, you're pretty good to go.
That's what I was telling someone. Jiu-jitsu is the conditioning part of it. It's like you're running, but then you're not really running at your own pace. Someone's chasing you, and you want to stop running because you're tired, but they're chasing you.
Yeah.
So that's like how it is in jiu-jitsu, where you want to stop because you're too tired, but you can't because the guy's coming after
Yeah.
you, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it depends how, obviously, like how like the intensity of the training session too. Sometimes it's a little bit more chill, and you're not really doing that. But for running, like you can sort of like listen to music, run at your own pace. You could think,
right.
yeah,
Free dopamine. Just like,
yeah,
I was telling someone, I think it was last week on my podcast, just like, I've like been able to like tap into a runner's high, and I can get it every time now. Have you ever been able to do that?
We were talking about that.
Mhm.
I don't think I'm fully there yet. I'm not running the miles like you are.
Yeah.
I'm just, the only thing with this, I'm just so hungry all the time. Like it's out of control, dude.
Yeah.
I think I asked you about this, right?
Yeah, we
Like
talked
it's
about it.
unbelievable. Like on Friday, I ran and I ran with my friend, and he kept going. I went home, and then that night I ate dinner at home. I ate everything I had in the house, and I was still hungry. But it was late, so I had to go to like a bar across the street to eat some more. And I got like a bowl of pasta. I was still hungry, and then I had some chicken after that, and I was still hungry. Like I was like I've been genuinely impressed on how much I could eat.
Right.
Yeah, and at first I thought it was just in my head, but I think I really am. Like it, I even thought about entering like a hot dog eating contest on 4th of July. It's like I wonder how well I could do.
Yeah,
like,
you're
just
like,
like being
now that I'm
competitive.
running.
Yeah, now that I'm running, I think I could probably win this one. You
Yeah.
know?
That's hilarious.
Yeah, but I've heard the same thing from a lot of people too. Like
Mhm.
that they get just
Yeah.
really, really hungry. Swimming, I heard, does the same thing.
Oh man.
Yeah, but yeah, besides the extreme hunger, like the mental clarity has just been really helpful, and the boost in your mood too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I always tell everyone, you know, I'm always happier afterwards. I'm tired,
Yeah.
but like the mood is the big thing.
Do you feel there's a difference whether you're doing, let's say, long distance versus intervals versus kind of like higher rocks training?
A little bit.
Like with your mood?
Yeah. Oh, with the mood?
Yeah.
I feel like my sweet spot is like anywhere between like 7 to 11 miles.
Oh, man.
Usually like a 10-mile run for me.
Yeah.
And at like a good, like not a sprint, but like a good like 75% or so, I feel so good afterwards. When I'm doing like for instance, when I did high rocks, you're doing everything as hard as you can, but you're only running a kilometer at a time.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of like muscular fatigue that goes on in between that it's just like completely different. And when I was done with that, like I was happy, but I was so exhausted.
Oh,
like it wasn't like, like I can go enjoy my day now. It was like, all right, I'm going to eat and get horizontal right now.
Yeah. Because I think when you run, when you're running outside, like, are you trying to hit a certain time, or oftentimes you're just going?
It just depends. Sometimes I'll go in with a goal. Oftentimes my best runs, I go in just being like, I'm just going to go and like, we'll see what happens. I do a route from my house in Summerlin where I go to Alta, and I go up Alta towards the mountain. So it's like 3.1 miles. So it's a 5K.
Yeah.
All uphill.
Oh, God.
And then once I get to the top of the hill, the remainder of, it's about an 8-miler all the way around, because I go a mile down, then I come back. It's all downhill from there. So I know that like if I get to the top of the hill and my legs feel good, then I start looking at times, and I start, because it's a warm up. It's an exhausting warm up, but that's whenever I have my best ones. Anytime I've ever gone in and like, all right, I'm going to like do this.
Oh, really?
I never perform how I want to.
Oh,
that's I'm thinking about it too much.
Yeah. I feel the same way about jiu-jitsu too. You overthink. Sometimes if you overthink it a little bit too much, then, and even in competitions too. So are you running more than 11 sometimes?
Yeah, I usually do a couple double-digit runs
a week.
I'll usually do a half marathon, maybe 2 a month.
Wow.
I think it's actually probably been a couple weeks since I did a half marathon or more.
Have you ever gone for a run and just wanted to call like an Uber?
I did one time in an actual race. I was running the rock and roll marathon.
Oh yeah, okay.
And I ran the first half. I just started out like a bat out of hell.
Yeah.
And it was, first of all, it was weird because I'm used to running in the morning fasted.
Yeah.
But this was like a 4 p.m. start time.
Yeah.
It took me forever to get in traffic. I literally had to pee in a cup before I even made it to check-in because there was so much traffic I couldn't even get there. So we started, and I started out like a bat out of hell. I ran the first half marathon in like an hour 28 or something like that.
What was your pace, you think, per mile?
It was like 6.
That's crazy.
It was 6 something.
Uh-huh.
Because I ran a half marathon. My PR at half marathon is 126 and change, and it was like a 6:35 per mile. But this one was a little bit slower than that. But when I got to like mile 14.5, something happened in my back from like my neck all the way down to like my glute, just like tightened up, and I just couldn't run anymore at that pace. So I basically had to run walk for the remainder of the time. And I looked at my watch and I was like, oh, I still got 12 miles to go. And it was horrible. Like, cause the way that race is set up, like some of it is like in neighborhoods west of the 215, and it's like dark as hell. You have no idea where you are. And you're like, where am I right now? I was like, I wonder if I could call an Uber. And I was like, I can't be a bitch. Yeah. And then at mile 17, David Goggins passed me.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah, he passed me, and I was like, all right, that's my sign. To stop being a bitch.
Why do they have it so late? Why is it at 4 o'clock?
It's because it's a Vegas thing. It's because it's like at night on the strip type thing.
Oh,
because it's like a lot of people are like that tourists do it for fun and stuff like that. So you know, I'm not an elite runner. I just do it for fun, and I'm decently fast for like a regular guy.
Yeah.
So for me, it was different, but like I'm sure the elite guys probably like tailor their training to that type of thing.
Like they run at that time. That
Yeah. Or
compete.
I mean, they're just so good that like that type of thing doesn't affect them. But
Yeah.
I had no plan in place. I was just like, all right, well, I'll go later.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
Yeah, it just didn't work out well for me.
I think that's how most people approach that marathon, right? The rock and roll.
Yeah.
Run? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, once you get to like elite sponsored running, it's a little bit different. One of my clients, she's like, she's an elite sponsored runner. Like she ran the New York, she like broke her knee and then like 7 months later ran the New York Marathon in like 2 hours and 42 minutes, which is insanely fast, especially for a girl coming off a broken knee. But I mean, she's super fast.
What do you think, like for you, what's your resting heart rate doing all the running?
I don't know what it is right now because I stopped wearing like any type of like device.
Yeah.
But I remember one time I was getting a physical for like the yearly fight, like to get licensed in Texas, and my heart rate was like 41.
Oh wow.
Or something like that. And the doctor, like, he was like, whoa. And I've checked it before. Like one time I was doing underwater training. I was doing swimming for my cardio. This was in like 2010, right before my first Bellator fight back in 2010. And I was doing nothing but like underwater, like swim training for my cardio. I didn't run once, but I would wake up in the morning and I could hear my pulse on my pillow. And it would just be like, boom. Boom.
Yeah.
And I would count it, and it would be like in the high 30s.
Wow.
Right now, it's probably, that was 15
You're
years
probably
ago.
in the 40s still.
I know I'm in the 40s.
Yeah.
Probably higher 40s, I would say.
So when you were fighting, because of all the conditioning you were doing, I bet you never felt tired, huh?
See, here's the thing, is it comes back to performance anxiety as well.
Oh, okay.
In the fight, there were times where, man, I just got tired. I was in great shape.
Yeah.
And I just got tired. Growing up wrestling, because I had thousands of wrestling matches, and I won state multiple times. I've won national tournaments, things of that nature. But I was never really that nervous because you're just like so like at a wrestling tournament, you're wrestling so often that it's not, you don't have a lot of time to like think and like mind fuck yourself. You know what I mean? But once I got like bigger opportunities in MMA, like I won in Bellator, then I won in Strikeforce, and then I won a title, and like a regional Texas title.
Yeah.
This was like December 2010, and at the time I think my record was like 9-2 or something like that. And then I got signed to Bellator for the Summer Series tournament, but they wanted me to cut to 45 because they thought I was too short for 55, which I mean I kind of am.
Yeah.
But I hadn't made 45 since I was 16 years old, and I'm like 28 at this time. And so I cut to 45, but I got the contract in like January or February, and the fight was in June.
Okay.
So it was the longest I'd ever not fought.
Yeah.
Like I'm usually fighting every 3 months. And, you know, at this time, it was Pat Curran actually won that season.
Yeah.
I fought Ronnie Mann.
Oh, no way.
From England.
Okay.
In the first round, and I lost by KO, actually, which was, I wish I could get that one back so much. But there were 6 months there where, like, I was just training. And usually between, like, my fights, my training camps, I would kind of go a little bit, like, wild. Like, I would party a lot, eat whatever I wanted, you know, and then once I was in training camp, I would get back to it. But because it was for $100,000 in the tournament and stuff like that, I was like, no, I'm staying like straight edge the whole time, yada, yada, yada. And it wore on me mentally, man, because I wasn't having any fun anymore. Yeah. And by the time the fight finally came around, like the length of time that I had been thinking about it, on top of the extra 10 pounds that I had to cut, I was in great shape, and I was better than I had ever been. But I just didn't perform well.
There was so much buildup to it, probably, right?
Yeah, there's so much buildup, and I had it all in my head that, like, I mean, you know how MMA is, though. Like, the wind blows one way, something good happens. The wind blows another way, something bad happens. And it just didn't work out for me well. at that time. But I think a lot of it had to do with like performance anxiety.
I wonder if partying a little bit would have helped you.
I think it probably would have,
Like here and there,
Yeah, I think that's a big thing that like learning from experience that I could like coach like guys on is like not like party, but like don't take it so seriously. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't like put so much pressure on yourself. Because to me, it was like if I don't win, then what?
Yeah.
And
were you thinking about the money, or you were thinking about just winning or both?
honestly, both.
Yeah.
I had a lot of pressure. Like growing up, like I had a lot of pressure to win all the time. So that's always been like part of like who I was. Like I always won, but like I didn't like really think that it was that much pressure. But now I'm on television and all these people who know me as a winner, I'm fighting like international people who are the best in the world. Like now I have to like be someone.
Because where was it aired? Was it on? No,
it was on MTV2 actually.
Oh yes,
yeah, it was on MTV2.
Because we had a guy from Cobra Kai on there, Ulysses Gomez. And
I remember him.
He was in. I think he was in the 35 one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember him. I think that was the same year I was there.
Yeah.
Did he fight in Hollywood, Florida?
I don't remember where he was at.
Because we fought at the Seminole Hard Rock in Hollywood, Florida that year.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, there was a bunch of like crazy. Like I remember, what was that guy's name? Marlon.
Did Marlon Sandro?
Yeah, Marlon Sandro was in my tournament, and Jose Aldo was there cornering him.
Yeah.
And this was
when
Jose Aldo was just like the man.
Yeah.
And so it was a really cool experience, and it was fun, but I just didn't perform the way I wanted to. And from that point, man, my career kind of never got quite back on track.
Did you ever think about like hiring like a sports psychologist or at the time? Or
not at the time. I wish I would have.
Yeah.
I think that's part of like where I like misstepped quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day in my career was I didn't ask for help enough.
Oh yeah.
I tried to do everything myself.
Yeah.
I was like really set on wanting to prove that I could make it to the UFC and like all this stuff without having to go to Jackson's or.
Yeah, where were you training?
I was training in Texas.
Okay.
So my coach at the time when I fought in the Bellator tournament was Bob Perez. So he's a striking coach for Derek Lewis, Kevin Holland, all those guys. So and he's amazing, man.
Yeah.
He took my strike. He made my striking so much better.
Yeah.
At the time whenever I was in Houston, and I was training with him. Daniel Pineda, do you know who he is? Yeah. So he was like one of my main training partners. And I was training with like Andrew Craig and those guys that like Team Took in Houston as well.
Oh, okay.
But at that time I was just in Texas and I was like, man, I can make it. But I was doing everything
on your own.
Kind of. Yeah. I didn't have a team. Like I was going to different gyms.
Yeah.
I was training something here. And I just kind of wasn't as structured as I should have been.
Yeah.
As I should have treated it. Like I treated myself well and I treated the task seriously, but I didn't create a unit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I had a team, but it was a bunch of separate teams that all came together.
Yeah. That's how it was before, right? You would just, I would be cornering somebody and then it would be like, hey, I want you to meet my boxing coach.
Yeah.
And it would be the day of the fight, right? I'm like, oh, yeah. How are you? What are we doing today?
Yeah, no, I've done that too before. Like I've trained with guys that like go to different places and then you meet the guy that you're cornering with at the rules meeting.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like now, that's not quite a thing anymore.
Yeah.
Because it was the Wild West back in the day.
That happened, I would say, at least 5 times.
Where you just met the corner?
Yeah. And I cornered for some people too where it would be like a kickboxer. This happened a couple times. Like, we kind of need like a jiu-jitsu guy to corner him. You want to do it? I'm like, sure, yeah. I cornered somebody one time. It was here in Vegas. And the guy had asked me he was like, hey, can you like come over after I weigh in? We're just going to go over like some last minute things. And I'm like, all right, sure. So I get to the guy's house. There's mats in the house. The guy's like a high level kickboxer. And I get to the house, I'm like, all right, can we go over how to get out of side control? what do you mean? Like, you want to just drill it? And he's like, no, I don't know how. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be a problem, dude. Like, we're screwed, man.
Yeah.
And he got mounted in the fight. He couldn't get out.
Yeah.
And the guy, he ended up getting hit a couple times. He turned, and the guy submitted him with like an RNC.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was how it was before, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Back in the day, just like try not to get taken down.
Yeah. It's crazy, like what seeing how people train now compared to how it was before. Like everyone now has like a nutritionist, a strength coach, performance coach.
Yeah, it's evolved so much. I always tell everyone,
dietitian.
man, if I was born in 1993 instead of 1983,
Oh yeah.
I think that like things could have been different for me.
Even how jiu-jitsu is taught now compared to before,
Mhm.
right? Like you could just easily look up something on YouTube,
Yeah.
right?
And, I mean, you had to do some real digging to find things, back in the day
Yeah.
before YouTube. I mean, what was it, DVDs? You were talking about VHS tapes.
Yeah.
And I'm sure those weren't
DVDs.
easy to come across.
But the footage that we would get before, like, so now you could just have a Flow Grappling subscription and you could just look up any match,
Yeah.
virtually any match from a major tournament. But before, someone would have to be like recording it at the venue and then put it in like a VHS or a DVD, and then someone would
Yeah.
give it to you, and then you would try to watch, right? And
Right.
you could just hear the sounds, like people walking past the
Yeah.
guy, right?
It was not
like-
professional at all. It's like
Yeah.
somebody's home camera.
Yeah, and like the angle was bad, or
Yeah.
they're sitting way up at the top.
Yeah.
Now there's like the actual match and then a breakdown of the match, or the guy who was in the match talking about the match.
Yeah.
You could just pull it up on your phone on Instagram.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the way that the sport and just like MMA, combat, jiu-jitsu, everything has evolved is, I love it. I wish I was a little younger so I could compete at that level or with those type of resources. But, the way it's going, I mean, who knows where it's going to go.
Yeah, it's gotten to the point now where I feel like it's gotten to the point now where it's so popular that like I said, like people know it. Like, so we would have people coming in for their first day of jiu-jitsu, but they know all the basic positions just from hearing Joe Rogan talk,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And you would just tell them like, oh, this is yeah, I know what an omoplata is, right?
Yeah.
Like, I know what a knee bar is. So in that sense, it's a little easier to teach guys now because they're just so once in a while, you'll still have somebody that has no clue what any of the positions are. But
Right.
for the most part, like if there's a genuine interest there, that they're there.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
So where do you see, as far as like what you're doing with your gym, your
Mhm.
community, what do you see the future for Simgo Academy and just jiu-jitsu in general? Like I mean, your whole life has been jiu-jitsu now, and it's
Yeah.
your business as well.
Yeah. I would honestly I'm happy with where things are. I'm just going to keep, doing what I'm doing. I like the community that we have, like just like you said, like the energy in the room and just how nice everyone is. And it's just about like maintaining that. I don't necessarily have like aspirations to, I don't know, like, let's say have like a bunch of affiliates,
Right.
or, some people will just pretty much like franchise.
Right.
Yeah. I actually like keeping it a little bit
Yeah.
like a tight knit group.
Right. I like
Yeah.
that too. And you think
Yeah.
about it this way, like, yeah, you could exponentialize that as well, right? But you're already doing what you love,
Yeah.
and your lifestyle is what you want it to be.
Yes.
So making it 10 times bigger would just be stress, really.
yeah, there's a book I think written by Paul Jarvis. It's called The Company of One. It's a pretty interesting book. It talks about that, like how most companies, when they start doing better, they just think about exponential growth.
Yeah.
And the quality sometimes can't keep up with that, or the staff, or pretty much what people loved about the company gets lost somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And it's stuff. I had 2 locations at one point. We had that downtown one and the one that you go to now.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard to sort of like, I mean, we had a bigger staff back then, but it was hard to sort of manage both at the same time.
Right.
You can only be at one place at, time.
Yeah. No, totally get it. And I mean, I think focusing all your energy on one thing is the best way to make it amazing.
Yeah, you have a bit more control over the quality.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're there, right? You can see
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, we've been going for almost an hour.
Oh, okay.
We're actually at least a little over an
Yeah,
hour
okay.
already. And I feel like we could sit here and talk about like
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu and fighting all day.
Yeah.
But man, thank you so much for
Yeah,
coming through.
anytime.
Is there where can my people follow you if they don't know you? Simgo Academy.
Yes, on Instagram. Yeah.
And Simgo as well.
Yeah, the website simgojj.com. That's it, man.
Excellent,
Come
man.
down to the gym if you guys are interested in trying a class and you want to, learn some jiu-jitsu.
Oh yeah, man. Learn from the best.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Make sure to follow Sim at SimGo on Instagram. We'll put those up. And SimGo Academy as well. His gym is at Sunset and Rainbow, right off the 215. If you're in the Las Vegas area, if you want to try out jiu-jitsu, if you have children that you want to get involved as well, it's the best thing to start your kids in for self-defense. He's got a great system and a great group and a great community. But thank you again for tuning in. Check us out on Well-Rounded Individual on YouTube. Remember, follow, like, and subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you next week.